The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yet hey, I'm disconnected right out of the gate. What's up, Jen? See you down there. We didn't even get going, and I got disconnected. Could not reconnect. But here we are, back again. I guess the Psalm 23 probably got truncated. And so far, after having rolled out of the truck stop about 20 minutes or miles ago, already socially engineered an NPC normie to get the fuck away from me. We've maneuvered through the U.S. Border Patrol checkpoint, and we've socially engineered some truck up here that will not maintain his speed and wants to try to lollygag, but I passed him, and then there he is, 71 miles an hour, right on my ass. Going to ride me to the promised land, so we slowed down. He passed us. Now we're trying to go as fast as we can without catching back up to it in the royal we. So that's what old Benton's got going. Fun times. Rolled out of the TA at 3:30 a.m. and look over at the Flying J parking lot across the street. And here's little NPC Normie in the four-wheeler, just perfectly timed to fall right in behind us and follow us, onto the service road, follow us up the on-ramp, follow us onto the interstate, where I say, well, I think I'll just go 45 and wait for these people to pass me. Yeah, 45 with the flashers on. There they are, just right behind the trailer. I shit you not, I had to break down to 35 to get them to pass me. And then they didn't want to get away from me. Then I had to just roll 45 with the flashers on for a couple of miles to get them to get the fuck away from me. You know, what is that? And I already hear the bootstrappers, hey, what's the big deal? Yeah, you're right. What's the big deal? Why couldn't they have seen me coming, rolling out of the truck stop? Why couldn't they just push on their gas pedal, get in front of me, merge onto the interstate, and just go about their lives? Why do they need to be on the ass end of this trailer? What is their purpose? Now, part of it, of course, is the normie NPC helpfully, ha ha ha, normalizes all phenomena that is not incongruous. So in some way, they're normalizing big rigs leaving the truck stop and merging onto the interstate. So thank you, Normie, for normalizing. Much appreciated. But of course, not wanting to take a leadership role. You know, they don't want to. Certainly wouldn't want to form a royal procession, right? Because in the royal procession, it wouldn't be me bringing up the rear necessarily, would it? You know, how would that go? Wouldn't they be leading me to the promised land? Why am I leading the way? Wouldn't we have a scout group out front to see, hey, we might want to scout out ahead for danger. That's the king back there. Got to protect him at all costs. What is this? You know. And now I'm going to roll 68 miles an hour and keep sight of this truck up here. But boy, 71, there they are, just glued to the bumper of my trailer. Probably an owner operator trying to save on fuel, trying to maneuver things in their favor, trying to survive. Somehow they're still building new truck stops. Somehow they're renovating old truck stops. I'm looking at one under renovations. You know, somehow they're building 2026 and 2027 Class 8 heavy duty tractors and selling them with tariffs, as I'm told, for $227,000. Somehow all that's happening. And I will get into the spiritual topics, and you know, bear with me if I'm a little cranky old man this morning. I for the first in like maybe 4 to 5 nights, I was not able to get my full, you know, restful nighttime ritual. Is ritual the right word? Routine. So I got enough sleep to drive my shift here, but that's about it. Get a little cranky. So please bear with me if you would. Much appreciated. Going for the egg yolk drink number 2. I think I need a little bit more of this lion's mane and this cordyceps. Out of this here drink. But I was receiving some downloads. I was picking up what the spirit of what I am was putting down this morning. I received the message. And part of the message is about the dead flesh and humanity and the human as the dead flesh. You know, lives of the human. There we go. I had to take a look at my own stream title. Oh yeah, Jen's cranky. Hip replacement. Oh my goodness. Well, most of you broads are tough as nails, so I don't know how much. And sympathy won't do you any good, but I feel for you after a hip replacement. And I'm sure you'll be on. She says she's working hard to get back on track after the hip replacement. Uh, yeah, yeah. I've seen a few women go through that, and I always marvel at the toughness of the ladies. I'm tough as long as I can get to do my whining. But I usually do the whining when it don't matter. When it's go time, I don't get into the whining. I wait till it's not an important time, and then I do my whining. The ladies just tend to, and they're not all the same, but tend to go through it more or less without complaint from what I've seen. Ah, they're creeping up on me back there. That looks like it might be the authorities, though. Possibly. Well, we had a combo breaker. The guy at the was a Hispanic with a dog at the checkpoint. Then the fellow that asked me if I'm a citizen was a black fellow, but I detected a bit of a Caribbean accent. Come on around there. Was that fuel hauler? Come on around, Bubba. Oh, I see why I thought it was cops. His clearance lights on his tractor's all fucked up. That's water. Out here pulling water tankers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to drive this weekend. Of course you are, Jim. Oh, of course you are. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Well, good on you. And I think about when I whine and cry about trucking, I think about other people. And I also think about what we put ourselves through as individuals. I certainly ran myself through some gauntlets in this life. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. That's a breakfast cereal. Mikey likes it. This protracted experience of death. So the proverbial thoughts and prayers, I guess, for Jen. I need to come up with a better phrase for whatever that is, whatever that sentiment is, that gets conveyed with, say, thoughts and prayers. So, really, I think what is meant is actually, therefore, but the grace of God go I. I mean, isn't that what people actually mean? But can't really say that to another person in the moment. That's kind of what people mean. Now I'm looking at some car crash, some billboards of some injury lawyers, and the top of their heads is like off the top of the billboards. It's like a separate add-on, except there's a several feet of gap between the top of the billboard and the actual bottom of their cut off part of their forehead. So did somebody climb up there and do that because they think it's funny, or did the installer do that, or is it just like, hey, this actually gets more attention? It looks funny, but it gets more attention, maybe. Is that the lawyer's idea? But yeah, the lies of the human. And so, what is the human? What is that? And I would say that most of what is considered human, it is the flesh. It's dead. So how am I going to talk about an animal as dead, but then the human's alive? Well, not the flesh. Flesh ain't alive. Flesh is from here. Are you a spaceman flying around in space somewhere? Is that a space suit? Is the flesh a space suit? Or is it animated death warmed over? Some version of the portrayal in the Michael Jackson Thriller video, the long form zombies. Yeah. And then Michael at least portrayed as the spirit of what I am, right? Innocent, pure, authoritative, powerful, healthy, shining and vibrant, him and his best girl. And portrayed in an old timey 50s fucking malt shop, let's go to the hop, dressed that way. Symbols of innocence and purity. And I'm not saying that time was that. I'm saying that's what it symbolizes in the zeitgeist to some extent. As far as I can tell, the mind, the subconscious mind, operates, perfectly decodes all symbols. Perfect. So that's where we get into, individually, we all kind of know what's going on here, do we not? Even if the conscious mind can't quite, it's not quite willing to face up to those horrors entirely. And so part of what I want to talk about this is the lies of the flesh. So in the Christian concept of being in the world, not of the world, well, what is the flesh? The flesh is of this world, is it not? Again, some of this is my opinion. Some of this, there's room for debate and disagreement. There's not going to be a consensus, and that's okay. Food for thought. The air quotes so-called innate thought experiment, whatever demon let that represent, the hallowed thought experiment, the propensities and proclivities of that particular pound of dead flesh. There's Border Patrol shooting lasers at my eyeball. I can feel it. I can feel it. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Render unto Caesar. I guess the biometric data belonged to Caesar. Right? I guess the eyeball belonged to Caesar. I guess the flesh belonged to Caesar. So render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. Somewhat forced to transact business, right? Somewhat forced to transact business. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I should be listened to. Benton, I mean. The spirit of what I am should be listened to when it deigns, DEIGNS, appropriate to speak. It should be listened to. Now, again, there's no obligation. It's free will. Nobody has to listen. I'm not sure old Benton here could have heard the message in the past. The distant past, certainly. Now, would he have been curious? Sure. Would have been curious. Maybe some of the activities of the hunter in the deer woods, maybe some of those activities draws the attention of the bucks or is it fawn, right? To be wholly quiet up in a deer stand, whatever scent is left behind on the way to the deer stand. There's little clues to kind of pique the curiosity of the prey. I said, well, what do you mean prey? What do you mean hunter, Benton? What are you preying on us, Benton? Well, what do the Christians say? I'll pray for you. That's pretty damn close to I'll pray upon you, is it not? Too far down the road. What the hell are we talking about? So I don't. It certainly can't be a coincidence that old Benton here, the performer in the context of performance, is attracted to monologuing on a live stream or speechifying and preaching in the streets, where others do attempt to interject from time to time. I usually just say, well, you know what? I can't hear you when I'm talking. So, whatever. Is this a collaboration? Well, the flesh is a collaboration. The lives of the flesh is that a collaboration in your protracted experience of death, which is the individual experience? And that's really not that's what's not spoken about. That's what's not communicated. The individual experience abstractly, because Benton has his. It's discrete, discrete. And if one values, although somewhat counterintuitively in Benton's case perhaps, his privacy, then we also get into discretion, or the other word with a different spelling and a different meaning that phonetically sounds like discrete with an ETE. Now we have discreet. And can we not see that a quarter to a half of Benton's ability to even, in spite of his ridiculous accent and his folksy country sounding ways, the ability to convey the message? How much of this is dependent upon Benton's own ability to understand, grasp, comprehend, apprehend, disseminate ideas and ponderances, inspiration, epiphanies. That's the word I'm looking for, epiphanies, in order to elucidate certain matters in the vein of entertainment, for the edification of the audience, but then of course, again, to elucidate and make clear certain matters, such as the individual experience. Is that what I called it? Sometimes I'm coining these terms, or the spirit of what I am, inspiring the coining of such terms. I even forget my own vernacular time to time. Then some may say, what is all these big words? Well, these ain't big words, folks. Hate to break it to you. These are not big words. And it's interesting, somebody who's educated formally in Eastern Europe, who has some grasp of the English language, I figured out I can use big words. It's a Ukrainian who's been properly educated in the Ukraine, a fella I worked with at Outback Steakhouse. That, yeah, I had trouble understanding him when he spoke to me in English, but I realized if I cut out the idioms or figures of speech, I could use so-called big words, and he knew what they meant. Isn't that interesting? But increasingly, motherfucking Americans don't know what these words mean. And that's not to insult anybody, but old Benton here is not willing to internalize that there's something wrong with Benton for using certain types of a certain level of vocabulary. Hashtag GOML, do better, people. And again, if I ain't talking to you, I ain't talking to you. I'm not really here to have a go with the listener necessarily. But yes, the lack of discussion around the individual experience, right? And I think I called it something else earlier. My apologies if I've forgotten what that was. And it's particular to the individual in the context of the performance. And so that's you, listener. I'm talking to you, listener, directly. The spirit of what I am, and if what you are, and none of my business. That's why the word "if" is there. Now the peanut gallery will remove the context of these comments and repeat them back and say, "Oh, did you hear old Benton and what he was speaking on?" The word "if" is there for a reason. I'm not saying that you are what I am. I'm saying if you, the listener, is possessed or apprehended of or apprehending of, in apprehension of, Nancy Pelosi's so-called MS-13 spark of divinity, a.k.a. this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Right? And at least one listener apparently is not going to be spoken to directly, and fair enough. Now, here's your warning. Trigger warning. I'm talking to you, buddy. And in the so-called truth community, it's also been referred to by Benton as the "you can't handle the truth" community. Now, some of the listeners may not consider themselves aligned with the truth community. That's fine. So-called truth community. I won't even get into the reasons why I found it necessary to invent that phrase, but I've got my reasons. I got my reasons. And so this is what the world of death and the game of lies, it does everything it can to avoid these conversations around individual experience, or what will very quickly come to be seen as an inner experience, because what's going on inside the individual. And then now, if we're talking about the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transaction, now we've introduced the context of time, space, location, place. Where is the individual, and where is the individual's inner experience located? Why, boy howdy, it's inside what? The lying human dead flesh. That's where it is. When is it there now? But wait a minute, now's already gone. Yeah, but the next now's just arrived. Now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone. And that is economy. People talk about, oh, in this economy, or, 30 years ago, the economy. And boy, that economy sure is getting bad. What is economy? Economy is the now, it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone, now it's the present moment. It's the now. So what is the function of the now with respect to what? In the context of what? Vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions and transacting. So in the now, what is economy in that context? It's the process, ongoing, unfolding, perpetual process of making rich folks richer every new moment into perpetuity, and that so-called economy never fails to achieve its purpose. That's the death you were born into, whether you like it or not. And please forgive me for speaking in this manner. This is the only manner that this particular dead flesh is possessed of in the context of this acting performance. Oh, well, yeah, all the world's a stage and the people merely players. Well, I ain't Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm Benton, and Benton knows one performance. Now, yeah, we got fake, phony aspects of Benton, created on an ad hoc grassroots basis, sort of, aw shucks, folksy, Gomer piling his way through certain situations. Well, golly, right? Huckster vibes. Well, the normie NPC is able to normalize that congruous performance. So how does the phoniness and the aw shucks hucksterism, how does that function on the NPC normie? They just normalize it. Oh, look, here's some southern country sounding bozo shucking and jiving and on about his hucksterism. So yeah, we know how to normalize that. Moving on. See how it works? That is the world of death and the game of life. And that's a conspiracy of conspirators engaged in lies. The currency of this world. What is the money? Oh, it's a dead instrument? Sounds like a lie to me. What is 38 trillion in so-called national debt? Sounds like a big old steaming, stinking pile of lies to me. I don't owe that money. Do you owe that money? Do you owe whatever the present American population is divided by 38 trillion? Is that what you owe? Well, is that your debt of death by being, in a Christian sense, a so-called lowly, wretched sinner? Encased, entrapped, ensnared, where? In the dead flesh. Death all up on you, buddy. The animated death warmed over of the Michael Jackson Thriller video. No. That's you, partner! That is your life. It's a breakfast cereal. Mikey likes it. I look back on my life, parts of it, and what was that? That was one of them zombies from the motherfucking Michael Jackson video. Oh yeah, make sure to do the up to the minute monkey dance of the day, humans. That's the go along to get along. That's the go along to get along. Whatever the up to the minute monkey dance of the day is, right? It's just a thriller night. Dong, dong. Dong, dong. Might as well enjoy the ghoulish, garish aspects of animated death warmed over, aka the flesh. And so there's the individual experience. It's the individual experience of death within the dead flesh. Let the dead bury the dead, render unto Caesar. Now Christ appears. Oh. The applause of the live studio audience, Hey, Fonzie. Here comes Kramer. Crap falling his way into Jerry's apartment. All right. It's I Love Mallory from my favorite flick, Natural Born Killers, and Interesting, the fellow who comes on here and talks to you all about waking dreams, surrealistic unreality, deja vu all over again. Because I would say, based on the box office and the DVD sales and the marketing campaign, probably the most surreal film of all time, if not the most, certainly top 10, one of the most top 10 surreal films of all time. That's probably worth watching. And to appreciate the experimental nature of that film. There's not a lot of experimental American films that end up accruing any sort of box office. I would argue that there's experimental film aspects of Michael Jackson's Thriller, which certainly would be considered a short film, 13-minute short film. And I went as far in university as film lecture, freshman level film lecture, but yeah, I sat in a classroom and they taught me about, we had at least one lecture on experimental film. Right? Never a dull moment in the dead flesh, is it? It's a thriller now. I can't remember the rest of the lyrics, and if I could, who cares? Quit singing, boomer. Why the boomers want to sing all of a sudden? The hell is this? Is this a musical? Is that your coping strategy? Music? Is that the repressed homosexuality rearing its ugly head? Musical? I know y'all conservatives seen Chicago. Come on now. So-called conservatives. I know every damn one of you seen Chicago. You got to fool me. You ain't got to try to fool me. Maybe you do. I tried to watch Cats. Fucking bullshit. Couldn't get through it. What was that other one? In the 70s? The New York City gang warfare theme musical. Couldn't get into that. So the lies of the flesh, the human. So to be a human, as far as I can tell, is to, and I'll get back to Christ in a moment. It's to be sacrificed to Moloch and Moloch's machine of industrial and post-industrial society and inserted into the transacting of business, and then talking about economy as the present moment. Now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone. And the realm, the business transacting, functioning to make rich people richer. And how do the rich people get rich? Well, obviously they get rich by serving evil. Right? And there certainly is no freedom in serving evil. That's to enslave oneself. Again, what is meant by the self? Well, I don't really know, but I'm sure we, the royal we, could figure it out. But setting that to the side, all they that hate, so-called air quotes, God, love, death. These are the lovers of death. See? And I keep hearing Gen Z after Gen Z and some of the younger millennials. Oh, well, nobody likes going to work. What are you, huh? Are you crazy? I'd say a third of these motherfuckers love going to work. That's a cope, Gen Z. You're coping, Gen Z, and I know we don't have a lot of Gen Z around these parts. Maybe might have a few replay crew, maybe. Who knows? Or up all night crew. Either way, it's not important. I'd be a little worried about if very many young folks was listening to willing to listen to the sound of my voice. That'd be a bad sign. I don't believe I was listening to any old fogies when I was in my 20s. Can't recall. Maybe if they was sweet sounding. Blow a little sunshine up my rear, if you would. Thanks. And I'm already driven a whole hour. I wonder how many miles we done made. Not too many, probably. We're doing all right. We can make it if we try. What comes right after that? Just the two of us, you and I. Well, who's that? Me and the dead flesh? What are we going to make? We're going to transact some business? We're going to divide the American population by 38 trillion and figure out what I'm supposedly in trouble for, aka render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. Do I owe that money? What I am, can that ever be in debt? Oh, you're going to tell me, what does the US dollar represent? One unit of debt. Not a store of value, not $1 of value. It represents $1 of an obligation or debt. That's what it represents. So as far as I can tell, the government issued the debt. The government has spread the debt around amongst the land, amongst the people, and it now wants some of its own death back, right? And that's what the Christian thinks is meant by render unto Caesar, let the dead bury, which I'm saying means let the dead bury the dead. That is the interpretation. You're welcome. And so the system is distributing 1,700 after my employer just steals 100 from me, calls it escrow, puts it, to save up 2,500 to smite me if I damage the equipment or whatever, which is not even technically legal, but whatever. Not too concerned about that. But then the government says, well, we get up to 30% perhaps, maybe even more. You got to give that back to us. Right? So who gave me the dead flesh in the first place? Did, air quotes, so-called God lovingly and intelligently craft this flesh and then say, there's going to be a Benton, and Benton's going to be a soul and a spark and, at least initially perhaps divine, perhaps. And then now we're talking about fruit and judgment and divine, or where is some of the fruit, the fruit of divine, right? What the fuck is going on here? Yeah, I can play the word games too. What even is this? I know I'm rambling a bit, but we'll get there. Royally. We'll get there. Patience, please. Perhaps. And now we get into what is the goal or goals of the individual in the context of the individual experience. I think that's what I was speaking on earlier. The individual experience. And that occurs via what? The inner experience, which is divorced from the flesh conditionally, maybe, perhaps, if. Because I would argue that the human, in the context of being seemingly encased within the dead flesh, what does the psychologist say? It says, well, the infant, what I would assert to be the spiritually perfected being, the what I am, the quickening spirit, let's say the infant can't differentiate itself from its surrounding environment, from its mother, from the surrounding, and it doesn't know what it is in relation to this place. Exactly. It don't have a frame of reference. The spiritual perfection of what I am lacks the frames of reference necessary to transact death in this world of death and game of life. It has to be taught or led. And it's taught by education, indoctrination, right? Corporatism, and various systems of death. What is the human but a connoisseur, a lover, and an expert practitioner within the ways and means and mores of death? And what is death? Or more correctly, the zombie-like presentment from the Michael Jackson Thriller video, animated death, or death warmed over in a ghoulish, garish fashion, which is this realm performing and continuing to sustain and perpetuate itself based on economies of transacting through the subversion of the creative force of what I am. And the subversion of the force on behalf of antithesis, because remember, the what I am lacks the frame of reference, but now within delusion, reconciling and resolving and solving mathematically for waking dream, surrealistic unreality, deja vu all over again. Now we have imaginings and the dreamlike state at times of so-called waking life. Again, the breakfast cereal, Mikey likes it. Protracted experience of death, to be more correct, or less incorrect, as it may be, in inverted world. And they say, well, make the world a better place. And Benton says, oh, let me uninvert that for you. You mean make it slightly less bad. Oh, well, the Gandhian notion of be the change you want to see in the world. Okay. All right, Gandhi. Whatever. We talk about Biden's poopy diaper. About Gandhi's. Gandhi wore a motherfucking diaper. In your face. Guy went around with a diaper. Wearing a diaper. I mean, come on. What is this, people? I can't remember the last time I saw a, modern day Indian or a Hindu mobbing around in a diaper. Was that ever a thing? What is going on here? And at the risk of being crass, at Gandhi's age, wouldn't his dick and balls been falling out the fucking diaper half the time? Gird your loins, Gandhi. Jeez, what's going on here? Goodness gracious. Did God, and is that also what did Christ talk about in the Bible? Sell your garment and buy a sword. Is that why Gandhi's bobbing around in a diaper, needing, you know, did he gird his loincloth at a certain point? Sell his garment? What the hell happened to his sword? Is Gandhi a slave then? Is that a symbolic representation of Gandhi as a slave? Where is your sword, Gandhi? And what do we mean by sword in this context? Well, word of God, of course. Shing! Goeth out of the mouth like a sharp sword, carving up the wicked. Christ treading the winepress. The winepress of what? The dead flesh. If that's the destruction of the wicked, well, what is the wicked? The flesh. So this idea of, humanity is fallen, wretched sinner. The dead flesh. Of course, it can't be trusted. Who I trust? Who I trust? Me, aka the spirit of what I am. What I am is the way. What I am is the truth. What I am is the life. No one comes unto Christ. No one comes unto true knowledge of self except through Christ consciousness. What else do you need to know? Well, encased, ensnared, all wrapped up in the dead flesh, well, the human probably needs to think their way through lots of these things, right? Probably. I merely speculate in part, apropos of something, certainly. I see comments. I don't even think I can read them. We all doing it in comments. Y'all panicking down there in the comments? Widespread panic in the comments? Well, I ain't reading it. Right? Trying to find my water, rinse his mouth out. There it is. There's the water. So really, and a big part of why the inner experience, the individual experience within the flesh is not addressed is because pretty soon it's going to be to address the inner experience. But then, of course, we have New Ageism and spirituality and religion and Christianity and Muslims and all of this to seemingly address the inner. So is it death forming a crust or attempting to form a crust around the spirit of what I am, perhaps? And so, now we see through a glass darkly the Christ story or the function of Christ is the victory over the death or defeat of this world, effectively. And how is that performed? Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. It's complete and total surrender. First, the warrior places themselves beyond the possibility of defeat. That's the spirit of what I am. What I am can't be defeated. Spiritual warrior genius. It is beyond the possibility of defeat. Right? It's the human warrior in a human war needs to fake it till they make it and needs Sun Tzu to tell them within the context of the art of war to psychologically place themselves beyond the possibility of defeat. Here's your sign. Here's a hints, tips, and tricks. Life is the Matrix, or life is a video game or a simulation. Well, a friend of mine was big into Grand Theft Auto. GTA 4 came out, and I went with him down to the GameStop, and I watched the skillful salesperson on commission, salary or a base hourly plus commission, skillfully sell him a $20 to $25, booklet guide to the game. My buddy knew he was having his arm twisted, and it worked. He knew it was going to work on him. So, all right, give it to me. Give it to me. And then people try to pass the Bible off as that guide. And maybe some would say, well, actually, maybe look into the Quran. Well, Benton says, well, how about I take a smattering of all of it and make my own thing? That's the spirit of what I am. It says, well, yeah, I'm out here. I'm the one creating in the context of individual experience. There's one creator, folks. There's one architect, navigator, and creator of your so-called life or protracted experience of death. And guess what? It's you, and it's only you. It ain't nobody but you. You can't give it up to God in that context. If you've given it up to God in that context, that's what they would say, oh, Jesus, take the wheel. What do you mean, like in Fight Club? When they all buckled up and they all simultaneously understood that the driver was going to take his hands off the wheel and they was about to crash the limousine? And what would the limousine potentially represent? This so-called wonderful life of attainment. Go out here and make your own way in the world and bootstrap and suck it up, buttercup. And economy, now it's here, now it's gone in the present moment. Function of which is to make rich people richer every new moment into perpetuity by serving corporations. Right? And the movie Fight Club supposedly ends with the destruction of the debt cycle in some way, at least, by dynamiting buildings that, could have represented the permanent record of debt or death, right? Again, in some way symbolizing a victory over death, right? And then you have maybe a concept of a phoenix rising from the ashes. It doesn't have to be in a Christian so-called Christ context. Well, that's what Benton was given. And that's within the context of indoctrination. And what did I talk about earlier? The spiritually perfected and innocent child that can't distinguish what it is from what everything else is within delusion, because it can't even contextualize delusion. It needs the phenomenon of surreal or waking dream or unreal, deja vu all over again. What I am needs that as an interface to even start to comprehend what the fuck is going on here, to even begin. And here's old Benton talking to you at age 50. And what was Benton doing by age 15? Oh, I don't know, keeping a dream journal, reading books on lucid dreaming, and to some extent mastering lucid dreaming. And then, one of my favorite Americans of all time, Crazy Horse, perhaps the greatest warrior this continent has ever seen. And they said his seeming invincibility in battle apparently came from his ability to what he referred to, at least in third-hand accounts, as dreaming himself into the real world, the spiritual world that lies behind this one. Or more correctly, perhaps to remove himself up out of delusion, or maybe to what? Understand the actual nature of what he was in relation to what this place is, this world that would make an enemy of what he is or was, which as far as I can tell is the same thing as what I am. And perhaps what you are, certainly what Christ was or is. If Benton gets accused of passing himself off as Jesus or God, so-called air quotes, well, so be it. That's what they say, not you. That's what they say. Whatever. They are going to accuse anyway, for they are of this world, and this world will only ever treat what Benton is as if it's guilty of a crime or crimes. And here we meet once again the Christian context and concept of lowly, wretched sinner. And to which I say, well, I've cleaned a toilet. Did that then transform me into a janitor? The commission of air quotes so-called sin, does that then transform what I am into a sinner? Especially if that ain't even possible in the first place, for what I am can never be transformed into identity as sinner, because that would then say that what I am could ever be stained or marred or in any way defeated by or touched by the death of this realm. That's not possible. For what I am is victory. Have you, world of death, game of lies, within the context of your transacting of business, have you considered my servant Job? And your servant Job, you can believe me or not, is pulling a $20 bill out of his wallet and just threw it out the motherfucking window. It's dead anyway. Who cares? And some would say madness. Okay, fine. Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. Feel the fiber of my fabric. Now let me make sure I didn't accidentally throw something important out the window, but pretty sure that was a $20 bill. Won't really know till I count. Looks like I still got my important item. And who knows what, will someday somebody else walk along and pick up that $20 bill? I don't know. No idea. Where's it going to go? Don't know. Now it's alive. It's in flow. I just breathed life into it. I did. What I am did that. See. The winds that only blow through the subversion of the creative force of what I am, I just breathed life into that. What prior was a instrument of death or debt. Now it's alive, or potentially alive. It's at least alive while it's flowing to wherever it's going to flow to, and then it'll go back to its dead state. It will come to rest somewhere, only perhaps to be revived, resurrected, and animated once again by another human. Animated death, one. Again, now we see through a glass darkly. Do we not? And yeah, I understand why a couple of you said, well, I'm not listening to some madman claiming to throw Benjamins. Or what's the 20? Who's on the 20? I forget who's on the 20. Throwing $20 bills out the window, even to make a point. And it reminds me of of a guy who is a street minister, so called, uh, who actually was on the stream with me when I was doing some IRL in Los Angeles. But a fellow I met on Sunset Boulevard in Echo Park, Los Angeles, when I was doing some street preaching. And then he became, he patiently waited to have a conversation with me. And I winded down my sermon and my discourse enough to listen to him. And he accused me in a way of, well, first he told me, I hate to break it to you, we've heard all this before. And I said, no, you haven't. Not in this way, but whatever, accusations, dismissals. And then and so after categorizing my own presentment and sermon in a way, attaching it to the performances of others that I don't answer for them. I'm not guilty for their crime, certainly. And can't be. For what I am can never be guilty. It's not possible. Only righteous. That's the have you considered my servant Job? Because everything that ain't Job, right? Everything that is Job will prove itself through righteousness. Anything that doesn't prove itself through righteousness is not our servant Job. So who cares? Let the dead bury the dead, render unto Caesar. It belongs to this place. So he tried to then put me in a category with people who might be publicly preaching in the streets long enough to be able to put out the tip jar. Well, what I didn't tell him, and what he doesn't know, is that I was once speechifying on Dixon Street in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And it doesn't matter to me, but I understand this will sound as insane or more insane than tossing a $20 bill out the window of this big rig to make a point, when I could have just kept it and told you I was doing that. But no, I really threw a 20 out the window. And you'll either believe me or you won't. But I didn't want people to get the idea that I was soliciting donations. So I was talking about money, and I pulled the $20 bill out of my wallet or my pocket and held it up to make a point. And then eventually I decided to had a rubber band, and I rubber banded it to my forehead so that anybody passing by could see, well, he's got at least $20. So probably, he's got enough to get through the day. So even if we're inclined to give him money, this might dissuade. Although in typical human fashion, it would probably have the opposite of if that was the intended effect, it would probably actually have the opposite effect. But yeah, he had no way of knowing that's who he was talking to and dealing with. Forgot that feller's name. Not that it really. Mark? No. Yeah, I don't remember. Probably not important. I remembered it when I met him on the street for the second time. That's all that really mattered. I don't know that there'll be a third meeting. It's almost time for me to eat some of this delicious fruit down here. You got red grapes, blueberries, and apricot halves with skin in cans. They're still good. I found apricots particularly good for my eyesight. It doesn't heal it or correct it, but it certainly helps. Mile marker 111. How about you? It's like we're 30 miles or so south of San Antone. Probably need to catch the next rest area unless we already missed it. Might have already missed it. Take a leak before we get into town where there won't really be anywhere to stop. All right, I'm going for the blueberries. Going in. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. My apologies for eating on the stream, but it is what it is, as it always is. Shout out to Tom. So we might as well go to a real world example of these lies of the flesh, right? And, as described, the individual's experience necessarily within the delusory and illusory realm is occurring within this protracted experience of death, and encased again in the context of time, space, location, place inside the dead flesh, which is formed like a crust around the individual. See, so hang on. Oh yeah, here we go. Wait station, which normally I don't pull into wait stations this early in the morning. I think we're going to be all right. Holiday weekend and all. Should be a spot for us. Was this a weight station? Might not be able to pull in here. They probably got it blocked off. Doubt this bitch is open, but it might be. You never know. I doubt it. Yeah. Maybe. I don't even want to pull in there. I ain't fuck with it. Yeah, they got it blocked off. It's hard to see tonight. I would have drove up in there and had to back up. Yeah, that's the one where they only use it when they want to go do a bunch of inspections. Drive you right into the barn, and then go up underneath the vehicle, do an inspection. Pull over on the side, right chop, real quick, like. Just a moment. All right, BRB. Where's my flashlight? There it is. Oh yeah, good times. Now moving on to the red grapes. There, check out these comments. Hey, what's up, Thunder Chicken? Shout out to Joe Moore. Yeah, Andrew Jackson. I thought he was. Yeah, he's on. You're right. He's on the 20. I know why I got confused. Yeah, yeah. All right. I know why. I actually know that, but I psyched myself out. Anyway, I won't even get into why it's ridiculous that I couldn't remember that one. On the road again. Shit, I forgot I have a watermelon. Should have had some watermelon first. Ooh, I won't have that later. What a blessing. So you may have some may remember that yesterday I spoke about a listener, a regular listener who's emailed me some details from their own individual experience. Lots of details. Lots of details. Which is a bit of a clue as to how the mind works. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily, but it's a clue, certainly. Hmm. Especially with respect to the state of mind of that individual, but not, again, I don't know this person. And I'm not able to read all of the details because to take in that level of details, what happens? It drains Benton's energy. So, in fact, Benton has taught himself to be able to be exposed to people who tend to communicate within the context of lots of details. And I've met many, many, many of these people, especially in my times in the streets. Met a lot of these folks who, when they speak, they they make reference to many, many details in all of their communication across the board, right? So based on pattern recognition, this is where Mr. Miyagi would say, how can you possibly know that, Ben? Well, Sherlock Holmes, pattern recognition, deductive reasoning, discernment. Now, this is not to accuse anybody. The point I'm making is for somebody to email me a bunch of details in a context, I don't know that person is necessarily inviting what's about to be unleashed. But number one, please forgive me in a way that this is how I communicate. And part of the golden rule is, which it kind of shows why the golden rule doesn't actually work across the board. But I prefer, if somebody's going to deliver me a message, and if I know I'm going to choose to be receptive, what I say is hit me with both barrels. Empty the gun, full force, right? Do not hold back. Both, give me both barrels. No pussyfoot, no half step. So we're going to go bottom line with this story. Because I've purposefully not taken in enough of the story to be able to even reveal too much, because I'm not even revealing too much to myself with respect to this person's, again, their version of their own story, which is back to the inner experience. That's the only valid version. If you think about it contextually from a specific perspective. It's the only valid version is their version, because as we're about to find out, there's a woman in the email, or I presume is a man, seems to be. Perhaps near my age. So you have the involvement with a woman in 2025, right? And then you have the involvement of the court system and perhaps law enforcement. But it doesn't sound like in a being arrested, charged, or going to jail sense. So civil action, law enforcement being called to a residence, but no, as far as I know, no criminal action, no criminal court proceeding. So to talk to that person directly, because if you leave it up to me, I'm just going to have to assume that when I receive a message for them that originates, in the past, I would have said, this is God talking through me, right? Now I would say, air quote, so-called God, and I wouldn't even use the G word at all. So, well, you just did. Okay, fair enough. I would talk about the spirit of what I am, which may in fact be the spirit of what they are. So they already know this, what I'm about to say. Some people need to hear it. In some way, I need to go live more or less every morning. And even if I don't end up bringing forth some, proper preaching all of the time, well, some of what I cover, that's not just me venting and complaining about truck driving or whatever else, or normies, will be me getting my own head organized for the day, organizing of my own thoughts and what I need to do. So if you're listening, sir, this, and whether live or on the replay, this is your last chance to bow out and not hear what I'm about to say. But I do want to point out that from my perspective, if St. Benton came up with this, this is something that was, again, it's the spirit of what I am. Inspiring. And now you're about to receive, the limited form of what Benton is able to convey in this moment. You done fucked up, buddy. You have failed abjectly in your recent endeavors. She has done nothing wrong. The court system is not doing anything wrong. You are the only person that done fucked up. You and you alone, sir. Now, why do I say that? Because there's absolutely no power in viewing it any other way. She's doing what she does. How can she, from your perspective, be guilty of anything when she's merely doing what she does? Not what she said she was going to do, not what she agreed to do when she told you whatever you wanted to hear. And again, don't argue with me about the ins and outs. I don't know enough of the ins and outs, and I don't want to know. I want to speak broadly and generally. I'm guessing you always will have superior knowledge to what I'm saying. I don't need to be made wrong through semantics. I don't know enough of the details to even talk about semantics. I'm guessing. Even if she's wrong, she's right. Why? Because you have no access to her inner experience, and it got nothing to do with you. That's because she doesn't have any access to your inner experience, which has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with her. And it's this world of death and these game of lies that indoctrinates and brainwashes and tricks the spirit of what I am, and which may be the spirit of what you are, sir, into attempting to intertwine those experiences. That cannot happen, right? And you're listening to a guy who literally had one of my woman's dreams one night. I'm 100% certain of this. Yeah, I had one of her dreams as we laid in bed together listening to fucking binaural beats, and I spent a bunch of time setting up the stereo speakers for, perfect stereo separation. We played, hours of different fucking going through different brainwave states for better sleep. I had one of her dreams, fuck's sake. That's not the intermingling of experience. It can't happen. Never the twain shall meet. Right? Well, of course, this world of death promotes all this twin flames and soulmate, all of this. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of bullshit. And if it didn't have a vagina and a certain type of shape, there's a 0% chance you ever would have put up with what you put up with. Let's call it what it is. You done what you done for your own reason. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all got our reason. And I'm not telling you anything that I haven't also done in the past. Now, at a certain point, I realized, hey, Benton, your goals and what you claim to have been working towards with all this spiritual stuff for years now, you can't continue on in this way with these people. You people, meaning attractive women or women. And it doesn't have to be women. I'm not picking on women. None of this is to bash women who I have a great regard for. And I consider at this point, I consider the mere notion of being a man or performing as a man is absurd and ridiculous on its face. I mean, it really is. What do you think women feel like? Their dead flesh likes us, for fuck's sake. Goodness gracious. We'll talk about the horror of animated death warmed over. A lovely feminine creature in that flesh. And it desires one of us, or maybe more than one of us. Maybe a lot of us. Is there anything wrong with that, fellas? Because if humans are supposed to be monogamous and only see one person at a time, nobody bothered to tell the dead flesh about that. Did they? Nope. Stacking up on old Benton, so bear with me. They've drawn my attention, stacking up on me back there. Ride me to the promised land. Now we got a slow merger. Can't figure out that you don't need my permission to get up to speed. Now the two of them are going side by side at the exact same speed. You can't make this up. It's fucking clown shoes out here, man. My dog got run over on the highway. Prominently displayed collar. Of course, humans are so fallen and wicked. I wouldn't put it past one of these scumbags to have done that on purpose and left that shit on the side of the road, knowing that the owner's likely to come by and see it. Would put it past them. And I'm going to tell you how I really know you done fucked up is the appearance of the authorities. And I'm going to tell you how I also know you done fucked up. Now, some of this is amalgamations of other stories. I was listening to a court case this morning where this guy is a drunk and an alcoholic and keeps getting in trouble and having to go to court. But then he's also he's got a woman filing TROs against him, restraining orders, right? And you know the woman that's filing restraining orders, she's also calling in the police, right? And we can debate. And I used to be this way. I used to be one of these, well, the system ain't supposed to be this way. And, common law and the systems. Yeah, all of that's true. That don't change the fact that it is exactly how it is. And you can't do a damn thing about that. And I can't do a damn thing about that. I don't have to accept it, except if I want to be able to take a shit every morning, I'm going to have to accept it whether I want to or not. So I can accept the constipation and the not being able to poop, or I can accept that the courts are the way the courts are. I mean, the women are the way the women are, and the judges are the way the judges are. And I can't do a goddamn thing about it. And if I want to go on a live stream and talk about it, and if people want to listen, that's fine. And it's appropriate. And if somebody else wants to type up a bunch of words, and that's a skill of theirs, I'm all for it. And if they want to transmit that writing to whoever they want to transmit it to, I'm all for that, because if a person knows how to convey their thoughts in an intelligent fashion, they're unlikely to suffer as a result of their own words, right? And like I've talked about with me, I've never suffered as a result of standing up for myself. And that's typically through my words and some of my actions at times as well, or both. Right. What I'm trying to convey is, in the context of your inner experience, every single time you try to offload even the tiniest iota of blame onto any of these other persons or entities, you are making a strategic error, for the blame only lies with you. It's entirely your fault what's going on, and no one else's. It's only your fault. You are not and I'm not saying you claim to be a victim. I'm pointing out that there is no possibility of you being a victim of this, because there is no power in being a victim. And if you are what I am, and I'm not saying that you are, I said if you are what I am, what you are can't be a victim, because it can't be anything less than all powerful. The real thing. Now, the fact that you may not fully understand this or apprehend this is completely fine. Guess what? Neither did I up until, I don't know, however many months ago this has been. Whenever that happened, unlocking the achievement of true knowledge of self / self-realization. And also, don't blow smoke up my ass about how I understand this place. I understand what I am. And through the way my mind works, I then understand this place. Without understanding what I am, there is no understanding of this place. Or it limits the understanding of this place. You can't know this place without knowing yourself. You can guess, like I can guess with respect to other people's individual experience. I can't ever know. I can only speculate. Now, they can tell me. I still don't know. Could all be made up. How do I know? I don't. No way I know. Can't possibly know. Good. All the better. Now, if a person wants to have, within the context of their own protracted experience of death, if this is what they choose to do with their time and their energy, I'm all for it. I have no interest in it. I've already done my versions of all of that. Now, none of it involved restraining orders in the courts, but so what? It's not a contest. But where does the royal, that person, right? Where does that person, I almost said where do we, where does that person go from wherever they are? How do they get from wherever they find themselves now to wherever it is they want to go? Do they even have a where they want to go? Do they have a goal? Because I'm going to tell you, anything short of the goal of true knowledge of self/self-realization, you've lost me, buddy. Not interested. You've lost me. So yeah, go ahead and email me all the details of your protracted experience of death that you want. That's fine. Go for it. I ain't interested. I'm only interested in the context of that individual and their efforts to do whatever it takes to unlock true knowledge of self within the context of world of death. Okay, fine. So here's how you know you're not on the path to doing that. Right? Choosing to live the way you've chosen to live is not going to do it. How can that be? Is that a rest area on the path to enlightenment? And if you think so, I can't help you. If you honestly believe that what you've done recently is on the path to unlocking the achievement of true knowledge of self, there's really nothing to discuss. So now we get down to what? Commitment, commitment, commitment. Skin in the game. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? But not to please me, not to get me to pat you on the head, not to get another man to pat you on the head, not to get some organization to sign off on your existence and your activities and ordain you and declare you fucking chief poobah of this, that, and the third. Who cares? This organization and that organization and this person and that person. Benton is dead. All organizations are dead. Your psyche's dead. Your performance in the context of this world of death and game of lies, guess what? It's dead. Animated death, death warmed over. A zombie dancer from the Michael Jackson video. Really. And if you can't tell me there's a thrill in being with that woman, now maybe the bloom's off the rose, but there was a thrill. And again, I don't have access to these details, so if I ain't talking to you, I ain't talking to you. Right. I might be thinking of the fellow who is trying to sweet talk the judge so he can get off of probation so he can go in the military. Because why? Because the fellow from the court case on YouTube, he won't face up to the fact that he's got his reasons for being a drunk, and he's not willing to face those reasons. He's pretending to not know what those reasons are, and he thinks that having the goal of going into the military is going to fix him. Because, well, when he has structure, he doesn't want to drink. Right? And the judge knew the exact questions to ask, to point out to the fellow that, well, even if you go to the military, you're still going to have free time here and there. So how are you going to not want to drink during your free time? The guy didn't have an answer because he can't face whatever's going on that is originates with his dead flesh and thereby is afflicting his inner experience. Your inner experience, sir, is afflicted, and it's borne out in your activities and the plight in which you might find yourself enmeshed. And you can tell me, well, I'm not enmeshed in a plight. Okay, fair enough. I'm just the person who drew certain conclusions from reading certain things you wrote. I don't claim perfect knowledge here and wouldn't be interested in having perfect knowledge were it available. So fuck me, well fuck you. Or fuck me, well fuck you. Either way, it works both ways. Fuck you. Well, okay, fuck me then. I don't know what else to say. I've told people before, we're not really friends till I do something and you either say fuck you or you give me the bird. Right? It's sort of a nod to me being an asshole, descended from a long line of fucking assholes or asshole motherfuckers. Right? Like a black homeless man who I got to talking about the Bible with a little bit. Really, he was talking about the Bible when I was listening. It's funny how none of these fellers, when finally I'm just like, hey man, if you don't mind, you can bring your Bible tomorrow. I want you to show me some of this stuff you're referencing. Funny how they never quite managed to pull off that part of that side of things. But whatever. Like I learned from him, I can't raise folks that's grown. That's how he said it. He's from New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, as they like to say. And if this don't tell you what you are, they got LED signs on the highway, jingle bells, not jail cells. Drive smart. So the realm treats you like you're guilty. For driving down the road, sir, you're already guilty in the eyes of this world. If you are what I am, you're already judged as guilty. And what will this world not shut up about in the context, especially of God, Christ, Trinity, and all this nonsense? And I'm not referring to Christ as nonsense. I'm talking about the concepts as typically used within Christianity. So let's be clear about what I'm calling nonsense and what I'm not calling nonsense. So I wouldn't want to misspeak. I've gotten better at that. Gotten better at not misspeaking in these ways. So that's good. We got that going for us. Hang on, I want to double check the route here. I believe I'm taking an alternate route out of here at a certain point. Yeah, we don't divert from the main route for a while. We're going to bypass Austin and Dallas. I don't think the traffic's going to be bad. Pretty soon, I'm going to have to do several hours of driving with the holiday travel crowd, and that's not going to be fun. Bunch of bozos. Unmitigated disaster bozos. Excuse me, pardon me. I'm not trying to get in front of you, sir. Thank you. And if anybody's ever curious why big rigs don't get over, and see, he's holiday traveler. If you're ever wondering why big rigs don't get over to let you in, that's why. Because y'all don't let us back into the slow lane. And I don't mean you, the listener. I mean the four-wheelers. I got over to let somebody else merge, and then this fella came flying up, blocked me from getting back in the slow lane, but then wouldn't speed up and get in front of me. I slowed down to try to get behind him in the slow lane. He slowed down. I slowed down again. He slowed down again. I put my signal on. He made enough room for me to get in front of him. But remember, when I was running 68, he was going so fast, I couldn't physically get in the slow lane and I can't speed up much beyond 68. So these are the people, folks. And yeah, I understand it's fucking annoying. Guess what? I can't do anything about how annoying these people are. Yeah, I can talk about it, right? And perhaps that's part of my way of dealing with it. And I'm choosing to accrue Federal Reserve notes from driving a big rig that I live in. So fair enough. But remember, it's a society, and we're all in this together. Except, why would he know or care that he's fucking up what I'm doing? He doesn't know, and if he knows, he doesn't care that he's fucking up what I'm doing, because we don't have and never have had and never will have a proper society. So when you want to talk about the court system and it does this and it does that, and the woman does this and the woman does that, you can talk about all that till you're blue in the face, and none of it's going to amount to a hill of beans. Just like I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face, right? And yeah, I want to make time today, but the motoring public's already on the roads, and they've decided that I've got to go 60. So again, if I want to be able to use the bathroom later today, I've just got to go 60. And if the trucking company gets upset that I couldn't make enough miles today, and then that becomes a factor later on, I can't do anything about that. Because these people won't let me go the speed I need to go through here for my own. They just won't allow it. They've decided that that's not going to happen. And so the practice in a way is to surrender myself to that, but not without tricking myself into thinking I've surrendered to it, not by convincing other people that I've surrendered to it, right? By actually motherfucking surrendering to it, setting my cruise at 60 and just going, I don't know what else. This is just, nothing else is going to work. We're going to go 60. And there's no actual justifiable reason for me to be going 60 in these conditions. It doesn't exist. It's what they've decided, and it's within the context of there's never been proper society, and there's never going to be proper society. Or maybe there will be after, some so-called reset of the matrix, and to end this current so-called dark age and bring in damn, I bet I could have went shopping at that Walmart over there. I don't have to do that today. They're open in 9 minutes, though. And so that's the value of Dick Gregory when they came to warn him when he was leading the civil rights march, and it came with the warning that, that such and such is going to assassinate you. And Dick Gregory said, did you talk to him? Did you talk to the criminal? Which Dick Gregory's making a point. See, because Dick Gregory, who almost certainly would have understood the true nature of what he is or was, would have understood that this world makes an enemy of what he is. And so the criminal, nobody's going to bother to go talk to the criminal. What are you going to do? Talk the criminal out of being what he is? The criminal's a criminal. You're not going to reform the criminal. You're not going to convince the criminal, the sysigent, right, the agent of this system of things. You're not going to convince them to not be a criminal. So who's going to waste their time? Nobody's going to waste their time talking to the criminal. See, the court system's not going to waste its time addressing its own shortcomings, right? It's not going to address the woman who's called in the authorities. Why would it? It's going to treat you as if you've done something wrong, because from the perspective of this world that makes an enemy of what I am and what you may very well be, you are always guilty. You've been judged guilty by default, because that's what this place is. That's what it does. And it's not ever going to change its mind. It can't. Well, they're making traffic now. They are making traffic now, Jack. Believe that. Making a hell of a lot of it. Better slow down. We need to be going 15 over through here. 10 will do. So I guess that's about as much as I can really go in on that person. And I'm not going in on them. It's just more of, some people. I found some people, and this is how I talk to myself in a way. I'm quite rough with myself. Not everybody can treat themselves so harshly. So you're welcome. Get your head out of your ass, knock it the fuck off, and quit acting like you're 30. You're closer to 50, it sounds like, than 30. Why are you trying to act like you're 30? Let it die. How much fun you need to have with these women? Enough's enough. And the world's changed. I mean, the world has changed, and I'll take it a little further. The only way for a man to have anything to do with a woman in these dealings is either it's got to be his territory and his world and his house and his place, and she don't live there, meaning she doesn't have established legal residency, meaning she can't stay there enough nights in a row and she can't be on the lease, right? So if she's staying there, she's got to go stay somewhere else enough of the time that she does not establish residency. You're going to have to, we going to evict abroad? You really want to go through that? So either you can make her leave, which I don't even personally find. Now, what are you going to call the cops? Why would I want to spend my time with somebody that would call the cops on me, or that I would call the cops to have them removed? See, that I would take that as a great sign of my own failure if that were to occur. That's how I would view that. And, I can say that that's never happened, and it hasn't, but I no longer view that as a superiority. It's probably only due to my own assholishness and the fact that a lot of my dealings was in the recent earlier times, and then I'm quite strategic in my maneuverings. And then in Arkansas, historically, we've had something of a culture of, a wife, and I'm talking about me here, a wife's not really going to call the cops on her husband. And even if she does, there's, there might still be a chance of the old school, just the man's home is his castle. And, law enforcement in the past might have been a little more inclined to take the man's side of things, culturally where I'm from. And certainly that's not the case anymore, although maybe it is in certain areas, perhaps, maybe. But yeah, I get the part where just because one of the two beings has a dick and balls, and you're the one of the two beings that has a dick and balls, you're automatically wrong. Yeah, of course you are. You knew that, right? Like, you understood that. Did you not understand? Was that unclear to you when you chose to put yourself into these scenarios? She didn't choose to put you in a scenario. You chose to put yourself in a scenario, just like this Michigan coach, when he chose to have a dalliance, a series of ongoing dalliances with his woman who literally worked for him within the athletic department. He done that. And what he didn't recognize is at the moment, as her superior, legally and in a job workplace context, he removed from the table his ability to fire her from her job when he put his penis in her. Now he can't fire her. Meaning, if he does fire her, which he did, now she can absolutely retaliate through the courts and the law enforcement, and he can't do a damn thing about it. He's powerless. So he had to have understood. If he was strategic, again, remember, he's supposed to earn his money as a football strategist, right? He's supposed to be earning his money as a football strategist, I should say. He didn't even understand the strategies of his own protracted experience of death. So when I talk about what I am commands with an air of authority, right? This is what I'm talking about. Part of that is understanding strategy. And so what did Benton do? Look at the strategy of Benton's life. Benton wrapped up his last romantic entanglement by, I don't know, no later than 2015, 2016, coming up on, it's going to be 10 years at some point. And then Benton had one last dalliance with a woman one time, and then Benton unceremoniously motherfucking retired. Arguably at the peak of his attractiveness. Arguably. Retired. Why? Strategic. And just understanding that to continue to accept these sorts of interrelations and entanglements with any other human, but in this case just happens to be, generally speaking, women, effectively exclusively women, let's just put it that way. In order to continue to do what I had done the entirety of my adult life, with only a few, minor periods of exception, was to be to choose to subject myself to things I'm simply not willing to subject myself to strategically, if that makes sense. Like law enforcement being called in, like restraining orders, the legal system. Now I don't have a place to live, and unlike my father, who's at times used women for their place to live or a place to lay his head or her resources, and he's certainly been used by women for his resources. I'm not saying he hasn't. But here's the thing about especially cohabitating with a woman, and it's her space. If the man can't grab his shit and leave at any time, or leave as he normally does and choose not to return, you're her slave. At that, she's going to consider you her property, and she's going to do with you whatever she chooses, buddy. And talk nice to your face when it suits her. And blow whatever smoke up your ass she needs to blow up your ass to get what she's trying to get. See? That's her job in life. The breakfast cereal, Mikey likes it. This protracted experience of death, that's her job. And one of the great lies is that it's a man's job to give her things. No, it's not. Man wants access to her vagina, so he chooses to give her things. Let's call it what it is. If she then decides she gets to negotiate or she gets to leverage what's between her legs, well, that's, now we get into what? Transacting. Now we're transacting. See? Now we're transacting. That's just the way it goes. None of this is to insult anybody or to woman bash. It is what it is. And so, in the dead flesh, in a world of death and game of lies, Benton damn sure better know exactly what the fuck he's doing if he's going to lay his head in some woman's abode, or if they're going to share a space, and she might be the type to, well, she's fine most of the time, when she's on her meds and she has a good night's sleep, and she doesn't, her PTSD isn't triggered because you didn't know that when you leaned on the kitchen counter, it triggered some memory in her of God knows what was done to her when she was a child, or a young lady, and she don't know how to deal with whatever that brings up, and you just happen to be there, and now you're the motherfucker, and then you want to be logical and start considering, well, you did this, and here are the circumstances under which y'all got together, and now you want to sit her down and have a big confab powwow where you explain to her the ins and outs of the entire motherfucking multiverse. And of course, if she's trying to extract something out of you or use you for something she values, well, yeah, she knows it. She's an expert in making you think that she's going to do and say and be exactly what you seemingly want her to do and say and be. That she's an expert in that. That's called daddy's little girl, sir. They're all expert in daddy's little girl, whether they got daddy issues or not. It's just how it goes. It's your job to make sure none of that happens to you. So if it happens to you, she didn't fail. She didn't make an agreement and then turn her back on the agreement. If you're crazy enough to think you could take the word of a woman, I don't know what to say. That's insane. What are you, huh? What are you talking about? We're the ones that are, but we're the ones performing with these concepts of manhood and honor and duty, and a man's word is his bond. Nobody's ever said any of that about a woman, and they never will. What I heard growing up was women and children. A classification, sir. Meanwhile, I was man of the house when my daddy wasn't around. By the time my balls dropped, I was about 12 or 13 years old. You know, let's call it what it is. She does what she does. That's it. She does what she does. End of story. And the fact that the government lines up with her, that's what the government does on behalf of Moloch's machine, on behalf of the world of death and the game of lies, to suit its purposes. See? And what you are, if what you are is what I am, can't ever be a victim of that, because the only way to be a victim of that is to be powerless. What's my user tag say down there under my name on StreamYard? It says power over the power. So whatever this world accesses at a level of power, what I am is the power over that power. And it's never not inside of me. Can I figure out how to access it? Or will I refuse to get out of my own way and continue to block my own access to that phenomenon? And it certainly is a phenomenon, not a collection of phenomena. This world of death is a collection of phenomena, which is also Christ's concept of, well, then Satan's kingdom is divided against itself, and how can it stand? Exactly. Satan's kingdom is division, and it can only pass itself off as standing the test of time by making it appear that it has somehow figured out how to splinter and divide the essence of what I am, which is an indivisible force. And so once you start to run your own interactions with other people, once you start running it through all of that understanding, what we see is you can't ever be a victim of these things, because to seemingly be a victim of things is to have failed to properly identify. Meanwhile, I've failed to properly identify many times in my life, and still at times fall into improper identification within myself. Meaning to fall away from the walking of the uncovered, righteous, perfected path that lies within. By temporarily, strongly identifying with this world of death and game of lies as if they were, strictly speaking, real, meaning authoritative, meaning representative of truth, justice, and the so-called American way. None of that's possible. This world does not contain within it the potential to express any of that whatsoever. No potential. And so you want to still go on and on about the court system and what they're doing and the cops, what they did. And I'm not even saying that you're saying that any of that wrongs you, right? It does whatever it does, this world of death games lies. And I don't perfectly practice this either. So, show me a human, I'll show you a hypocrite, right? That's the gospel of Saul of Tarsus. To say, well, hey, Benton, here's a time or two when you didn't quite live up to what you're preaching here. Yeah, exactly. That doesn't negate the validity of the proper preaching. When did I claim perfect adherence? I didn't. Now, I do look forward to a day. So my goal is looking forward to the day on which I begin to perfectly walk the now uncovered, righteous, perfected path that I know for certain lies within. And I do indeed look forward to that day. May not live long enough. May never happen. The general public is a bunch of creeps. And again, I'm only speaking to my own preference. Why do you want to have anything to do with them whatsoever? What's in it for you? I'm now watching 5 cars, every single one of which is solely driving based on their relationship to my big rig. It's creepy. It's fucking weird. 2 of them have literally attached themselves to my vehicle. They're driving as attached to me as humanly possible. It's fucking creepy. And only because I'm almost out of this bullshit am I even willing to entertain this temporarily. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You're a creepy fucking weirdo. You in my mirror right now. You're a creepy fucking weirdo. Not you, sorry, the listener. Them. The weirdo in my mirror is a creepy fucking weirdo. Now, do they know that they're a creepy weirdo? I don't know if they know. But they're a creepy fucking weirdo nonetheless. Some of these creepy weirdos like being told they're creepy fucking weirdos. This is probably that version of creepy weirdo that enjoys being told that they're a creepy fucking weirdo. Thinks it's funny. Ha ha ha, look. One of the bastards actually recognized the creepy weirdo is smaller while it's happening. Ha ha ha. And again, always seeking to persecute what I am, which lines up with the story of Christ from the Bible. Christ is quoted in the Bible as saying, the servant is not greater than the master. You saw what they done to me. What do you think they're going to do to you? Well, they're doing it to me. They're doing it to Benton every day of Benton's protracted experience of death. That is the walking of the valley of the shadow of death. That's to walk the valley of the shadow of death. To walk the valley of the shadow of death, fella, is for you to think you're going to have a relationship with a woman. You better understand the cops are probably going to get called at some point. Right? Probably she's going to file a temporary restraining order. Why do you think I'm not shacked up with one of these frauds? I could easily spend the rest of my life shacking up with a never-ending succession of broads. Easily. I'm not willing to accept what I know would come along with that. Unwilling to accept what I know would come with that. So it's never her fault. It's never the court system's fault. It's never the cops' fault. And I'm not saying you said that it was. And maybe you just like talking to the cops. Maybe you like dealing with it. I don't know. I have no idea. Everybody has their own preferences. I don't. I prefer not to. I prefer to stay out of the courts. I prefer to not talk to the cops. And the fact that my dead flesh, left to its own devices, might want to sniff a couple of more vaginas before old Bent gets up out of here. Who cares? Who cares? Nobody, including Benton himself. Nobody. Who cares? That's an animal body doing stuff with another animal's body. Why? For what? And like Sam Hyde pointed out, when he called out these incel weirdos in his audience who, never really had any dealings with women, and then now they think they want to pick out their perfect fucking waifu, and they're talking about all the reasons why they would disqualify a certain chick. And Sam Hyde came in and just bottom lined it. He said you're trying to have a relationship with an autistic man. He said, if you want to be with an autistic man, just go date an autistic man. Right? Because if you think you're going to be with a woman and you're going to stay out of the court and she's going to have all the little, what you think you're entitled to, and, you're going to share common interests. Don't you know what mirroring is? Don't you know once one of these broads sets her sights on you? Of course, she's into everything you're into, buddy. Even if she's not, she'll tolerate it. And then eventually she'll start liking it. And haven't you ever noticed that and now of course there's exceptions. I'm not talking, it's never helpful to point out the exceptions. Right. Focusing on the exceptions doesn't negate the general truth of it can't invalidate a general statement that's true more often than it's not true. But almost all of the time, women end up taking on the habits of whatever man she's been with for any period of time. So if he's a drinker and she's not, well, if they've been together 2 years, now she's a drinker. Whatever he's into, if she's into him, she's going to be into whatever he's into a couple of years later. It's just how that goes. So if you're into spirituality, well, guess what? So is she. Even if she wasn't, even if she wouldn't have been. Just how that goes, fella. Surely you don't need me to tell you that. And I'm not trying to talk down to nobody. I'm speaking on what I know from my own experience and observation. Right. I'm really not here to settle anybody's hash. And part of the reason I don't want to know too much about another person's situation. I don't want to know enough about it to even get accused of misspeaking. I don't know enough to misspeak. I'm inventing things in my own head and speaking on those in conjunction with things I've directly experienced and things I've directly observed. That's it. And I can draw certain inferences when the cops are called. And I can recognize that for me to choose to enter into any sort of relationship with a woman, or really any other human, but certainly a woman, is to invite into my life the possibility of potentially feeling like I probably ought to explain myself to the motherfucking police, who, even if they identify with me and understand what's happened and know that she's probably just being vindictive, it's still part of their job to come out there and deal with me. And God forbid if somebody admits to physicality, somebody's going to jail in most jurisdictions, and it might be her or it might be you. And people could say, well, it's almost always the man. Well, yeah, historically, that's probably true. I'm seeing more and more cases where the broad's going off to jail and he's not. Either way, in a lot of cases, somebody's going to jail. And even if it's you, the fellas might be like, yeah, man, we get it. We know, we understand what we think probably happened here. But guess what? The state law as written says we got to take one of y'all to jail, and it's not going to be her. So that only leaves you. So let's go. It is what it is, sir. Just doing my job. And then we can all have opinions about, well, should it be that way? And boy, that sure is not fair and unjust. Oh, you mean an entire world of death and game of lies that makes an enemy of the truth, justice, so-called American way, ha ha ha, and supreme authority and creative force and love itself of what I am? You mean the world of death and game of lies that makes an enemy of that? You're shocked and surprised when it behaves based on a lack of justice, a lack of fairness, and fails to take what you regard as your, air quotes, humanity to heart? Are you crazy? So if not, stop acting crazy, because that's crazy. That's crazy. Pretty please, sugar on top, knock it the fuck off. Thank you. So either leave them alone, as Benton's done, or figure out how to only ever interact with them when they can't really do anything to you, such as mostly in public, sadly. And then, I don't know, get a room, pay for the room, have the room in your name. Politely ask her to leave if necessary. If she won't leave, call the motherfucking cop. And if you suspect that you might need to ask her to leave, why are you in a hotel room with her? If you would suspect that if you were to ask her to leave, she might not leave of her own accord, and you might then need to call the police, why are you in a hotel room? Because you want what's between her legs, and that's your dead flesh, and that's okay, because that's what it does, that's its nature, but it's nothing beyond that. It's not how she expresses herself, it's not her personality. If she didn't have that thing between her legs that you want access to, and we know as men, it's also for other men and other women to see us with certain women. That plays a part, of course, in our own how we view ourselves and our own validation. But then I would say, even playing into that, why? I remember what it was like to be received a certain type of way because of the level of woman I was able to have in my life. And I look back on that and go, why did I understand why I cared about that, but that belongs to the dead flesh. What I am don't give a flying fuck about that. What I am don't give a flying fuck about that. Who cares? Do I enjoy having a nice time with the ladies? Yeah. Can I have a nice time with the ladies platonically in public? Absolutely. I can go walk around the park, sit on a bench, you know, do the bobblehead and the stupid grin. What I don't know what level of affection is okay in public. Maybe a little hand holding, put your head on my shoulder, whatever. I ain't even really into that anymore. And I would view that as more for her than for me. Now we get into some, Don Juan, some actual Don Juan type shit. What I mean by that is, I think from Don Juan's perspective, it was all for the woman. It's the man doing these things, for her enjoyment, to facilitate for her, right? Putting her first, but not to be a simp, right? So called. Never been a fan of that term, and I predate that term by several years, but, you know, for her edification primarily, right? Because she's the one that don't really have access to that. I do. I'm the one who, when able to, express my own masculine spirit, I'm the one who then will attract the femininity. See, she has no ability to draw that into her life, see? Which is half of the reason why a bunch of dumbass men end up in these situations. Because women have that ability to take whatever little bit that the man is willing to put out there of himself. And if she wants to, she can manipulate and maneuver. And, pretty soon it's what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive, right? So, for example, when I ran into that lady picking up the load, and if I felt like I could have actually talked to her without, and I'm not even scared of losing my job. It's just not appropriate because it's in the context of employment. But let's just say in a vacuum, if I somehow had perfect knowledge that I could just express myself to her. I mean, this is literally the type of thing I would say. Would be like, are you married? And hope she says yes. And I would say, thank God. I don't want to get married for the third time. But I understand that I'm able to convey that in a charming, masculine, congruent with my own personality way. Right? That she's not likely to find strange or off-putting. Right? And then if she's like, well, no, I'm not. And then it's like, basically like, oh my God, now I'm in danger. I got to get, some humorous version of get this woman away from me. Right. Danger, danger, get this woman away from me. Right. Or just continuing on with the questioning. Well, would you consider marrying a gray-headed 50-year-old cranky old man, truck driver? And then she could laugh and go, some version of Cameron Diaz on the trolley in Gangs of New York while she's pickpocketing the guy because he's, has to be very formal and is it okay if I sit next to you and all of this? See, that's the new version of that. That's me letting her choose every step of the interaction, see? And then finally, when she's done robbing him and he wants to walk with her a ways and she's got everything she wanted out of him, she says, no, that, sir, would be too bold. Right. So then through this series of steps, if she then would agree to maybe be potentially interested in a 50-year-old gray-headed cranky trucker, me, right? Clearly me, at some point I'm going to get into the, oh my God, get me out of here and get me away from this woman. I'm in the danger zone, right? And then I might very well end up marrying them, like for real. Like, this is what I'm talking about. So I already know, don't even go down that path, sir, unless you actually are trying to potentially get married for the third time. Because in my world, and I'm only speaking for me, I'm going to have to marry abroad. Yeah, I don't want to get married. I've been married twice. I don't want to get married again. Well, I understood. Well, that's not entirely up to you, Benton. It's just not. I've never had complete control over that area of my life. It's not completely up to me. See? But nor can I ever be a victim of that. So I must accept my role in that. See? And most of the time I'm able to control myself. I'm here to tell you, I was on the verge of not being able to control myself. And I don't mean physically control myself. I mean with my interactions with this woman who most likely found me attractive as well. And certainly was aware that I found her attractive. And I could tell at a certain point, she knew I was trying to get away from her and she was milking it. Because, I mean, what woman wouldn't enjoy that? Toy with him a little bit. And if you don't understand that they are going to toy with you for their own enjoyment and amusement some of the time, you have no understanding. And I don't know the person who's emailed me. They might know more about this than I do, and they just wanted to complain to somebody that they understand also knows what they're talking about. I don't fucking know. Again, I'm speculating. But because I, on some level, understand and accept what a woman is, I know that they'll do this. And I accept that they'll do this, and I ain't mad at them for it. And again, not saying you are, sir. Just playing the odds. Merely playing the odds. And generalizing for the purposes of the listeners as well. And see, the thing with a lot of these women is, as social media takes further hold, and as these women are expected to look some type of way visually, for males, especially of their own age, to respond to them some type of way. Well, you have some of us, and a lot of us are older, right? And people could talk about, you're still young. 50 is considered an older man. It's just called older man. It's what that's called. I don't need to hear a bunch of crap about, oh, well, you're not old or you're still young. I'm an old man from her perspective. Whether I got some of my vigor still in me or not, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But yeah, a lot of this is someone who can appreciate her natural beauty and her beingness. It's sadly because, look, she can't hang with the fucking Instagram models of the world. That doesn't mean she's not attractive. It means, and she's prettier in the face than a lot of them. I know because I'm standing there and there's no filter. I'm looking at her actual face. Now, has she had work done? I don't know. It's possible. I didn't see any duck lips or whatever, but I expect a lot of them have done Botox by now, but whatever. I ain't too worried about it. And as we should know, a big part of the way these male female dynamics, in the context of Moloch's machine, it's set up on purpose to operate with the woman as the what can motivate a man, right? Even a 50-year-old man who is powerless in a way, right? Although not entirely, but in recognition of, in a vacuum, I probably would be, sort of defenseless, I think would be not powerless, defenseless. No defense to some of her feminine ways, right? So I wouldn't care as much about, moving to an area of the country I don't really care for, dealing with a harsh winter that I don't really care for, right? Probably going to need to continue to make money because if I'm making $1,700 a week when she meets me, I'm probably going to need to keep making $1,700 a week, right? I mean, I can tell her till I'm blue in the face that I lived out of a backpack and I've been homeless in one ear and out the other. All she knows is I had a pocket full of money when she met me. And I was working regularly that's all she knows. And I know how to hold down a job. So probably going to have to keep working. Now I'm more exploitable by the system. See? And now I'm more inclined to put what I might want or need on the back burner. And not entirely because I know that won't end well for either one of us. But, I understand implicitly in the moment that this realm, while it wages its spiritual warfare upon me and what I am, that's one of its many ways of doing it. And it will actually just the wonder and splendor of womanhood and femininity can cause even me who understands all of this intellectually to a great deal. Guess what? It still all works. It still works. And my sister, my middle sister, who's quite adept at, various manipulations and social dynamics. She knew this guy who was a Marine Corps recruiter, and I can't remember the circumstances, but somehow he was going to end up spending a weekend in a hotel, probably for work somehow, with a woman that he wanted to bed. And he asked my sister, based on us together in this hotel room, but, in a professional sense where we're not supposed to, and, she's not necessarily just going to offer herself up anyway. He's basically like, I think he's basically like, how do I get this to happen? And it mostly be her idea. And my sister said, it's easy. You just draw a line down the middle of the room and you say, that side's your side, this is my side, and don't you come over here. Except, when one of us has to go to the bathroom, whatever. That's all it takes. You just forbid her from coming on your side of the room. And the thing about that is, my sister understands those dynamics, and it'll still work on my sister. The fact that she understands it doesn't mean it won't work. My sister will still respond to that sort of thing. Especially when I started learning all this pickup artist stuff. She told me, yeah, some of these guys text me, "What's up, trick?" And she says, I understand the tactics, and she says, still kind of works. It's still way more intriguing and alluring potentially than a so-called nice guy, right? So the knowledge of the thing itself doesn't necessarily keep the thing from working. Funny how that works. The lying flesh wants what the lying flesh wants in the world of death and game of lies. Anyway, I can tell I'm starting to wear myself out a little bit, so we'll wind down the. It's almost 3 hours of straight content. Almost, not too bad. It's like a solid 2.5 hours of content. You can't accuse me of not being a giver. I'm not implying I'm not also a taker, but get your minds out of the gutter. Some of you, some of you, some of you. Some of them's minds go directly there. Some of them. I lied. Actually, we are going through Austin. Forgot, but and I would have bypassed Austin, except the fucking GPS can't decide on a. There's too many options because um, there's Texas has too many highways with high speed limits, and the fact that it's given me like three different alternate routes, seemingly just I can't figure out what it's using to choose one over the other, or is it randomizing, which doesn't really make any sense. So I decided that was injecting too much, a little too much uh, randomness and potential to get delayed. So um, unlikely to experience delays on this holiday weekend going through Austin on a Saturday this time of day. It's a weekday, it'd be a little bit. Still planning to bypass DFW unless it changes my mind. We shall see. Royally. Here's how much of a boomer I am. My new earbuds, I didn't tell them to do this, but I guess because I'm signed into probably the same Google account on two different phones, it won't stop popping up. Oh, I think it's because it has support for dual devices. That's what it is. It will not stop popping up on my navigation phone telling me that the earbuds are available. I want to use it. Blocks out the top of my screen, which I need to be able to see at certain times. That might be how I missed my turn yesterday. Back. got to be some kind of way to turn that off. I haven't seen a setting in the software to disable the dual device support or whatever. Well, I don't know. I'm going to have some of this, what's left of this Fiji, and move on to the. Actually, no, this is Mountain Valley. I think I already drank all the Fiji. I've been putting it in different bottles, so I've forgotten which is which. Of course, if I can't tell the difference, does it matter? But that's a good question. I don't know. Think about it. Give that some thought. Oh, I know where we're at. We're near Buda, Buda, but they pronounce it Buda, not Buddha. There's Cabela's. I know pretty much exactly where we're at. Now, this is near where my white Nissan Versa got shot up. I shot bullet holes in it. And I found me a little spot right off this access road to camp out, pitch a tent years ago, where I could also park my car. Y'all really gonna slow roll me now? Make me slow down to 60 all through here? See, now we're getting into why I probably should have maybe reconsidered the alternate route. I think I was too lazy to set a bunch of waypoints. Yeah, here's the toll road. Yeah, this is it. So I think this is where I would have exited, but there's still like a lot of different ways to go to meet up with I-30 in Arkansas. There's a bunch of different options. Could have taken that though. Could have. Now this is the annoying part all the way through Austin. And there's really not anything to see. Because I've spent enough time in Austin, and the more I've had time with this true knowledge of self, the less I'm finding I'm less attracted to any sorts of, walks down memory lane. And Austin's, even since I got my CDL here in 2018, it's definitely changed a lot, especially near the interstate. So some of it's not even really recognizable anymore. Like I used to camp out underneath a roof, what I think was a metal building, on a concrete slab on the property of what I believe used to be a junkyard, and then it looks like HEB, the grocery chain, bought it probably years ago, and never did anything with it other than, remove the junkyard, most of the junkyard as far as the cars and everything, and then left some of those metal buildings. This was more of like a carport, but it had, walls. It had at least a couple of walls where in the winter, I could get out of the wind, which is a big deal. So I slept there for at least a few weeks, and then one day I woke up and they had heavy equipment out there tearing all the buildings down. And like a week before that, the cops were out there, and I could tell it was a pretty serious whatever it was. There was an enclosed building nearby, and I think probably some homeless druggies in there. Maybe somebody owed. It's just all kind of stuff is possible. So I don't look at. But here's the argument for the toll road, because now we're going 53. So I could be going top speed on the toll road right about now, not having to go 54 when there's no traffic, because these bozos in front of me can't maintain their speed. And for me to jump in one of the other two lanes, I'm going to have to mix it up with these non-driving motherfuckers. I'd rather not deal with that right about now. I do think I'm going to switch out the earbuds though, and let me see, what do we got left for? We're holding up all right on my phone here, 46% battery. Oh, and now we're into everybody. All lane changes occur directly in front of my big rig. Now we're back to that pattern. Nobody changes a lane unless it's right in front of me. So now I am acquiring the middle lane. Had enough of that. Had enough. All right. I think I'm back. Sometimes the earbuds won't sync up with StreamYard when I switch them. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. And the driving is so fraught with peril right now. It took a lot longer to get back.
For some reason, the car deal. Oh, I guess because it's Christmas. Peace on Earth. They had an elaborate artistic, some kind of art display on their front glass. It's, I guess, an angel that said peace on earth. Well, there ain't gonna be peace in the dead flesh. The peace of what I am, right? That peace. The world of death and game of lies don't know anything about peace. We know that. It only knows war. There's downtown. I got some big ass. They got at least a couple. They got at least one, I should say, fairly tall building standing above the rest. I don't know how many stories that is. That's a legit skyscraper. Pretty cool. Lady Bird Lake. Some of y'all might have heard of that. It's become somewhat infamous in the news over the last several years. Talk of a serial killer, perhaps, dumping bodies in Lady Bird Lake. This is Riverside. Old Benton used to take the bus to his job at the airport from downtown, Skid Row, the Sally. Well, back to the Sally at night, more correctly. Looks like a checkpoint or something. I think they're having a DUI checkpoint at the off-ramp. That was weird. Couldn't quite tell, though. Huh. That was, I don't know what that was. That was something strange. Whole Foods. Hell, I don't think it's even open yet. I don't think they open until 8. I know somewhere along here, a homeless woman climbed up on I-35 where it's elevated over downtown and got ran over by a big rig. Assuming she did it on purpose, I don't really know. Hard to say. coming up on University of Texas over to the left. Can't see the drag from here, which is Guadalupe. And yes, they do pronounce it Guadalupe, not Guadalupe. Spelled Guadalupe. Even on the bus, when it announces the stop, it says Guadalupe, not Guadalupe. The recorded voice on the bus. I always forget, but there's a street like that in downtown Portland, Oregon. Where it's the way they pronounce it is nothing like it's spelled. You're just looking at it like, what? What stop did they just announce? So I'm looking at the way it's written, and what I heard doesn't sound anything like what I'm looking at. Can't remember what it was though. Fuck me. Oh, happy. Sprouts. There's a Sprouts. Not a huge fan of Sprouts. It's all right. It's all right. All right, I guess I'm out of here. I'm going to go see what there is to listen to. Probably not much. There's always less content around the holidays. Well, and before I yurt the stream, if anybody understands that reference, I just yurted the stream. But that's all right. It's non-10 anyway. You've been warned. Hey, there's Embassy Suites. I always liked Embassy Suites. I used to take my gal to. There was an Embassy Suites. I guess there still is in Hot Springs. Go to hang out in the bar. Is that the atrium? I don't know. Whatever they call that area. It's nice, man. It's classy. It's upscale. Just because you might not give a fuck, fellas, she might enjoy it. Those type of places. I like going and just kind of checking it out, being there, and then all right, let's get out of here. So I wasn't trying to stay there either. That's another thing, just I think more people are aware of that, and of course now it's all over with the death of so-called liminal spaces, right? Or third spaces. That's all over with. Or the trolls are priced out. There was a time when a man waiting tables and a woman waiting tables had enough disposable income if they wanted to go drop $40, have a couple of drinks each, and tip generously to the tune of maybe $40 at the Embassy Suites bar. That's not really a thing anymore, is it? I wouldn't mind having a drink from time to time, but I don't even really see the point in that. Realistically. I don't know. I guess I could enjoy a proper dry martini. Never been a martini guy. I guess I don't really even have the clothes for such an outing. It's like, well, I've had my drink. See you later. You know, imagine the movie scene or whatever, and the well dressed, ruffian, rough around the edges. Maybe pluck those nose hairs first, sir. I don't know. Just speculating. But either way, might strike up a conversation with a gal over a drink, and it's like, all right, well, I'm calling it a night. See ya. Just fucking bouncing. Like, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't really advance the plot, sir. I guess that's the argument for not imbibing in the first place. So one thing leads to another, perhaps. Let's not sing that song right now. Please and thank you. Got a guy playing sheriff of the road, and I'm so boxed in here, and the road's so rough, and I'm walled in. So somebody merged onto the interstate at high speed without even bothering to see if. And there's it's a very short merging area, and without bothering to check, maybe there's an 18-wheeler with the right of way. So I got halfway into the middle lane, so I'm keeping my lane, and to not crash into them or force them into the wall. I guess he saw that and interpreted that as I'm halfway in his lane, except I was nowhere near him. So I had to slow down to nothing, because then he was playing sheriff of the road. But I finally went slow enough for long enough. He went on about his business. He was going to make sure he introduced me to the long arm of the law first. Little Texas justice. Like, I don't know. I could have just held my lane and just made them deal with it, and maybe either choose whether they're going to crash into the side of my trailer or crash into the wall or slam on their brakes and just stop right in the road. Right. I'd say I did the right thing, actually. And they're the ones who didn't even bother to look and somehow didn't see an 18-wheeler. If they did, they didn't seem to give a fuck. Yeah, I was going 6 miles over the speed limit, so whatever that means. Get past the whole time. But whatever. I think if I was them, I'd just be happy that I had a wall next to me on the one side, and then I had the wall of a 53-foot long trailer on the other side, and one of the walls just magically moved over and made enough space for me. I think I'd be pretty pleased by that, personally. Of course, most of these people don't even understand that they don't have the right of way, and I do. That's another problem. The lack of understanding. I got a big rigs passing me through. I went 66 when he passed by big rigs. Narrow ass lanes, I'm up against the wall. So the fact that these motherfuckers can't even figure out how to merge into this is not really my problem. So beyond Thunderdome type shit right here. Here comes another one. He's not going to see me. He's not going to care. He's not going to adjust his speed. Why would he? You know, I'm guilty for existing, right? Remember, that's the thing is, that's one of the big keys to it all is to understand that from the perspective of this world, Benton's guilty merely by existing. Just that alone is enough to be guilty, to be treated as if he's already been adjudicated and found guilty. That's what it means to operate in this world, fellers, ladies and gentlemen. As far as this place is concerned, you've already been adjudicated guilty if you are what I am. From the perspective of this world, anyway. And ain't never gonna change. Ever. Complain all you want, don't like it all you want. It don't make no matter. This road is fucked. Yeah, this is mostly locals. This is way better than it was coming down here. That was a fucking nightmare. Must have mostly been holiday traffic. That was terrible. This is just the regular insanity, but less of it since it's Saturday morning of a holiday weekend. Rooms to Go was a nice place. Furniture store facing the interstate. Whittlesby Landscaping Supplies are waiting to get in there. Get started this morning. Rick's Cabaret. There's a Walmart. I'm trying to think. Have I been to? I don't know if I've been to that one. I usually am familiar with all. Yeah, I know which one that is. I'm generally familiar with all of the Walmarts in a given area. Not across the nation, but somewhere I've spent any appreciable amount of time. And I hear some people going like 30 with their flashers on, going to cause a bad wreck. As it goes to 70. See, that they need to be. I mean, that's an actual crime right there. Now I'm in the wrong. I'm illegal in this lane. Now I can't get out of it. You know, the ripple effect. So I had to do what the safest thing. Because of course, I always see and assess the danger much more quickly than the people around me. Almost always. It's like, well, I got to just get as far out of this as I can while also going around it as quickly as possible. Fix it on the back end. Okay, now we're back to the slogan. Happy State Bank. Because we're happy in the vacuous, delusory, adversarial world of business transactions, banking and finance, and currency and economy and employment, money. Dead, 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 dead. Render unto Caesar, and yes, I threw a $20 bill out the window earlier. Breathe life into that dead thing. Now it'll blow on down the road, come to a resting place, presumably. Maybe another human will discover it and reanimate it, animate it once again, temporarily breathe some more life into it, perhaps. And here we are foolishly jumping over a lane for mergers who there's a 0% chance of them letting me back into my lane. But we're going to see what they do to us. I think they're probably just going to block us for miles and miles. No, they're actually letting me over. Amazing. All right, I'm out of here. Bye.